All right, all right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We are so happy to be hosting this year's Candidate Forum 2020. We have our currently in position Rocky Hanna, the Leon County Superintendent, and we have his competitor, Miss Keisha Washington. Miss Pam Holly will also be joining us this evening in a little while. So thank you all for joining us, and we're very happy to be able to explain to you guys, to the community, why these individuals are our best options and candidates.
Okay.
So I'll go first,
Okay.
and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Rocky Hanna. Or, you know what? Let's make it a little different. Mr. Hanna, I'm sure the community wants to hear from you. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you all for putting on this forum. I have to admit, it's somewhat nervous going up against a former student of mine from Godby High School. But Keisha, it's good to see you. I wish you the best of luck. I hope your son's doing well. So yeah, I'm Rocky Hanna, born and raised in Tallahassee, third generation graduate of Leon High School. I'm a product of our public schools. I was a Timberlane Tadpole and a Raw Ram and then a Leon Lion. I've started my career with Leon County Schools in 1988 as a hall monitor at the bottom of the organizational chart. And for the last 32 years, have experiences at just about every different position from the bottom up. And now finishing my career as superintendent of schools, it's a dream come true. We have an amazing school system, wonderful administrators and great teachers. And I just want to continue on the momentum that we built over the last 3.5 years.
Thank you so much for sharing, Rocky. And who knew that Miss Keisha was your student? What?
Yes, back at Godby High School. The
Now,
Godby High School.
I saw that on your website. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Miss Keisha, if you can just please share with the community a little bit about yourself and how you got here today.
Okay, my name is Keisha Washington. First of all, I like to give a disclaimer because I didn't get the petition signed and I didn't meet the funds to get on the ballot. So when you come November, you would have to write me in. So when I say Keisha Washington, and write me in. Keisha Washington, write me in. Keisha Washington, write me in. As Rocky was saying, I'm a former Godby High School native of Tallahassee. After high school, I went to the military, did 10 and a half years, where I served as an automated logistics specialist, where I was accountable for over $1 million, not over $1 million, but they were in logistics. So I have that behind me and also have leadership over soldiers. So I had to care about their well-being, sorry, I'm a little nervous, their well-being also, and budget. So we had to maneuver around funds. We had to make sure the soldiers were taken care of, and I had to make sure that we were ready for war, even in peacetime. So it was an ongoing process, and I learned a lot. I love it. I miss it. So after the military, I decided to be more of a stay-at-home mom, and that's been since '06. Since '06, I've been in the education system, volunteering most of the time. A lot of teachers told me I should have been a teacher, but I think more of an advocate was my style. Back at Evans High School, Citrus Elementary, and Robbinswood in Orlando, we were taught to fight for the teachers, fight for the students. We weren't just what you want to say fundraisers and cookie bakers. We did a lot. We came up to Tallahassee, we petitioned, we learned the language, we learned the policy. So therefore, after learning all of that, I got my BA in public administration as well. I also took a job in Gaston High School as a behavior specialist, where I learned a lot with their system. So since '06, I've been in the school system. I've been in several spots. I've been at the right hand as a principal. I actually have been with the hiring process of teachers. So the education system is not new to me. It's not new at all. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I want to say hello to the community. I'm so sorry. Hello to the community. I'm a little nervous, like I said, and it's a pleasure being here. Hello to you, Rocky, and Thank you for everything. My son is doing fine. Thank you, Florida Community Law Center, for inviting me out. But I do want to say, I want to send not a shout out, but I actually want to send my condolence to Jordan's parents. He was one of my mentees, because my son also graduated when he graduated. So I do want to acknowledge that. I want to go further on because he is a Gabi High School graduate. But I'm not new to the education system at all, so I don't want anybody to get it. I just woke up and say, hey, I want to run for superintendent. No, I didn't. I have my background behind me. It's a strong background. I'm well qualified. I'm more confident. And I think I do a great job.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Ms. Keisha, as well for being here with us this evening. Just in being involved in the community, both at the law firm, but myself, a little bit about me. My name is Rebecca Joseph, and I'm the executive director for the Florida Community Law Center. We have two branches. We have our law firm, where we do representation for clients who are in need of legal advice or legal education, and also representation in the courts. But we also have the law club that is very much supported by the community, and it's driven for the community. And being involved in the community and in the various ways that we are, I speak to so many of our, young professionals, adults, and no one really knew about everyone that was running. Surprisingly, some people just were not familiar with the different candidates, the various candidates that were running, and especially as times are sensitive as they are today, especially for the African American community, we knew that we wanted to do something to change that, which is why we're hosting this forum this evening and this week. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. And we want you all to know every day this week from Monday through Friday, we're going to be inviting various candidates in different categories to ask them, why do they feel fit to take the role that they feel that they're running for? And most importantly, what contributions are they going to make to bring our community forward and together? So with all that said, let's get to the good part.
Yes.
I do have some questions that I've prepared for this evening, some of which were asked to me from some of our supporters that they wanted to know. So I'm going to give you both an opportunity to answer the questions. And so the first question is, how is it that you, this question is going to go towards Miss Keisha. You did kind of touch bases on this in your introduction, but we would like to ask you your role in leadership. What is your leadership style? What would you say your leadership style is?
I would say my leadership style is more a compassion one. Listen first, speak later. What I want to say, the heart of the people. I want to be more effective for their concerns, not my own agenda, but theirs. Making sure we're coming together as a community, that everyone is involved. We lack nobody behind. It's a pretty strong leadership, but it's directing you to where you need to go to be successful.
And in saying that, when you were in the military, I think you said it, but did you have leadership role there?
Yes, I did. I had soldiers up under me.
Okay.
I was, like I said, I was in charge of millions of dollars with the logistics system. I had to report to colonels, my colonels and a battalion commander, making sure that we were ready for battle, making sure that soldiers were ready, their families were ready, because we leave nobody behind. And I was also in charge of the families that were left behind, making sure they had contacts in case the ones that were deployed needed each other. What else? It's so much that I did. I don't want to over talk it, but that was my biggest structure, is the funding, making sure dollars amount were moved around, soldiers were able to deploy, also vehicles were able to deploy.
Response, Mr. Rocky. I'm going to invite Miss Pam in. She is here with us this evening, Dr. Pam. And so we're very happy to be able to share this platform. These are all three of the candidates running for Leon County Superintendent. And so welcome, Dr. Pam. I'm glad you're able to make it.
Good evening.
Good evening. So we were kind of going into questions. Mr. Rocky Hanna was just going to explain to us about his leadership style and share some of his experiences as superintendent. I'm going to go ahead and let him go ahead with his response. Afterwards, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the community.
Well, Keisha, I'd like to first thank you for your service to our country. And I also served in the United States Army before becoming a teacher. I was commanding officer of the 160th Military Police Battalion here in Tallahassee. So I'd like to thank you for your service. But as far as my leadership style, very interactive. I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and get in there with our employees, especially with our principals and our teachers. I always said the day I forget what it was like for me to be a classroom teacher is the day I need to leave the profession. The morale of our teachers is of utmost importance. So I have to make sure that all the decisions that we're making at the district level, or what I call out on Pensacola Street and Never Never Land, are in their best interest and in the best interest of our children. So in doing that, it was my belief when I was a principal at Leon High School for a number of years, if the teachers are happy, then the children are happy and the parents are happy and life is good. If our teachers aren't happy, and just like the morale of your troops in the United States Army, if the teachers aren't happy, then the children aren't happy and the parents aren't happy, and life as a high school principal would not be nearly as good. But again, also with that, over the last 3.5 years, committed to do a lot of superintendent work days. You know, I know what it was like to be a classroom teacher. I was a classroom teacher for the first 12 years of my career. So I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be a school administrator and a principal, but there were lots of jobs in our school system that I wasn't as familiar with. So over the last 3.5 years, I've served as a substitute teacher, as a mechanic for the bus depot, as a crossing guard, as a school nurse, as a receptionist, refereed a middle school football game. I did pre-screenings for VPK and pre-K programs. So I wanted to show, did food service worker, bus assistant. I wanted to show our people that I was not afraid and wanted to learn what their roles were and to walk in their shoes so I would better understand how the decisions we made that impacted them on a daily basis, that I would know what it was like to be one of them. And so I'm very proud of that and would like to continue that role over the next 4 years and to continue to learn from our employees and make the decisions that are in our best interest and therefore in our children's best interest as well.
Wow. Wow. That was amazing. Pretty extensive experience there. Thank you so much for sharing. And likewise, I too want to acknowledge you, Ms. Keisha, for serving for our country and really appreciate your commitment for doing that. Thank you. So I'm going to go and allow Dr. Pam to explain her perspective and the question. So, you know, Dr. Hightower is to explain to the community what your leadership style is. I'm sure a lot of the viewers that will watch are a part of the school system in some way or form, and I'm sure they'd be interested in knowing if you were to take over, what should they expect? But before you go into that, if you would also take a moment to give the community a little bit of background of you as a professional, who is Dr. Pam Hightower, and then go on to explain to us some of your leadership style. Excuse me.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting this for the community. And I too would like to thank both Rocky and Keisha for your service. My husband was also in the military, so I understand what that is like, and I do appreciate that. As has been said, I'm Dr. Pam Hightower. I am a veteran educator in Leon County Schools. I have been a classroom teacher. I've been a primary specialist, an assistant principal at Clarn Lakes, a principal intern at Appalachia. I've been a principal at Carolyn Bavard, Weston, and Bond Elementary Schools. I've held district positions as a coordinator for the homeless, McKinney-Vento homeless program. I've also been the district Title I director. And most recent, in the last several years, I worked as a math consultant for 7 of our DF priority schools. So my experiences has been vast. I have been from the north side of Tallahassee, serving the students from the rural areas on State Road 12, Miccosukee, to the inner city, school students from Carolyn Bavard, and I've been boots on the ground. My leadership styles is one of participatory. I believe that we should always start from the top, not from the top up, but from the bottom, and include everybody in the decision making so that when we make decisions, we don't have to go back and change it because we've gotten all the input from all the stakeholders. As has been said, there's nothing that I, in any school that I have been in, will tell you that I don't think is above me doing. I have put my teachers on a bus. I've taken them and ridden through the neighborhoods to look at where our students is coming from. I think it's really important for us to understand the neighborhoods that we serve. From Colon Lake, we got on a bus and we went out to State Road 12 to see where those students were coming from. As principal at Bond Elementary, we got on a bus and we went through the neighborhood so that our teachers could see where we were coming from and parents could get to meet our teachers. I have and thoroughly enjoyed my years as principal, as a teacher, and I think that those experiences has provided me the opportunity and with the skill set that it's going to take to be the superintendent in these times. So back to your question, my leadership style is one of participatory, involving all the people in the decision making and leading with your heart. Don't do anything to someone that you would want done to you. So having the compassion and the passion to lead with the heart, that's my leadership. I am a transformational leader and also an instructional leader, and I'm ready and willing to be superintendent of schools.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for such great detail, and I appreciate your answer. Okay, so let's kind of switch the speed up a little bit because I know that everyone is here to explain why, why they would be best fit for superintendent. But I mean, there are so many different roles in leadership amongst the schools that you all could have taken. Tell me, Ms. Keisha, why did you decide that you wanted to be a superintendent?
Well, I have love for children, first of all. Not only that, I have the passion. Like I say, I just didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm gonna be superintendent. The things that I believe of and the things that I want to see or change, I've been doing it. I've been taking kids home from football practice. I've been feeding them. I've been buying track shoes. I've been making sure that their well-being has been taken care of. I've been talking to parents. I've been making them successful for when they graduate from out of high school by writing them, like a platform or direction and guidance on how to maneuver through high school and how to maneuver out of high school into college. I've spoken to several parents about it. Not only that, I've been to places where most teachers or most administrators won't go. I speak to you on the other side of through. I was one of the students at Godby High School, a Title I student. And I know what it feels like to be in a Title I school area and not have things. Coming home in certain lifestyle structures or not even being part of it, but you're seeing it. Thank God my mom was strict and she wouldn't allow me to do certain things. But however, I saw it. It was firsthand and I dealt with it. And for others to come over to my house and say, hey, let's play, or hey, what you doing? It was like a safe home at my house. So I know what they're going through. I know how to direct them. I know how to talk to parents. I know how to make sure that they are conducted safely through the school system, not only safely, but make sure they're successful when they leave the Leon County education school system. My platform is a holistic education opportunity, and that's for everyone, not only my students, but for my teachers and my staff and my faculty as well. So if there's anything that they lack or they might want to do or encounter, let them do it. Let them do it without any hesitant of thinking what the next person might think of them, or hesitant, or they're not getting pushed within the system to live their dreams, because it is their dreams. And like I say, I could have been a teacher, but my more forefront was an advocate to fight for the teachers and fight for the students. And being in the classroom, I couldn't have done that as I have done before.
So, Rocky, how about you? What would you say would need to be done as being that you have been superintendent? What are some of the things that people who have not been superintendent may underestimate about the role?
Well, I really didn't have any aspirations to become superintendent of schools when I got in this profession. I got in to be around kids and have an impact on their lives day in and day out. In 1997, as my wife said, who's a classroom teacher, I turned to the dark side and became a school administrator and then a high school principal. And then life changed for me in 2012, and I was brought out to the district office in the summer of 2012 and sat out there for 3 or 4 years and started looking around at all the wasteful spending that was going on at the highest levels. And when I was a high school principal, I was always saying, we need more money, we need more money, we need more money in education. And then I got out to Pensacola Street and I started looking around and realized there was a lot of money, which is my humble opinion. A lot of it was being mismanaged and priorities were set wrong. So that's when I decided to become superintendent, and I'm proud of the record we've established over the last 3.5 years. We've pushed millions of dollars back into the classrooms. We've given raises for our bus drivers, food service workers, for our teachers. We've given money to support the arts. We've given money for athletics. We've given more dollars than ever before for furniture and equipment. These funds have been cut off from our schools for many years. So I'm proud of what we've done, but I never had aspirations to become superintendent. And now that I'm so far removed from kids, which was a heck of an adjustment for me, it was. After 25 years of being in a school, it was hard. But now I get my satisfaction knowing that I'm doing the right things and on Pensacola Street, making the decisions that's giving those resources back to our principals and back to our teachers that are directly impacting our children's lives on a daily basis. And I think we built a lot of momentum, and I would just like to carry that momentum forward over the next 4 years.
Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to have a follow-up question for you, Mr. Hanna, because a lot of our viewers are interested in knowing how the schools are going to adjust to the changes of these days with coronavirus and with the continuous cases happening on a daily basis almost. What led to the decision of why was school reopened? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, first I have to go back to the beginning. On March the 13th, we were told that our students would not be returning after spring break. And, we just left. The kids were gone. The teachers were gone. It was 5 o'clock. The kids' belongings were still in their locker. The teachers' belongings were still in their classrooms. Then the governor issued a stay-at-home order, which was very confusing for us. So we had to pivot on a dime and turn our school system, which is built on brick and mortar face-to-face instruction, into one of distance learning. And that was no easy task, but I credit our school administrators and most importantly, our teachers who are used to face-to-face instruction to then pivot to distance learning over the course of the last 9 weeks of the school year was quite a challenge, and one that they did exceptionally well. We did learn a lot. Now, as far as the opening or the reopening of our schools, you saw the other day where an executive order came or an emergency order came from Commissioner Corcoran's office about the mandatory reopening of our schools by the end of August. And if we didn't, then we could suffer financial consequences. So we created a task force to help guide us through what reopening of our school may look like. And what we're doing is we're giving parents, in this time of giving families choices, we're giving our parents and families choices. That if they want to come back, that we want to welcome them with open arms. But if they don't, and the situation in their home is just not conducive, or they're scared still, that we want to give those parents and families choices too, that we will educate your child, no matter if it's in brick and mortar class at school or at home. So we've developed and devised plans built around that as far as the reopening. And now we see the uptick of cases in the state of Florida. We've become the epicenter, even here in Tallahassee and Leon County. And Keisha, you speak to that young man who died over the weekend. It just breaks my heart. And so any thoughts of reopening have to be done with safety first, safety of our students and safety of our employees. And so we have some tough decisions to make over the course of the next several weeks about what reopening looks like. And, it's a tough situation. There was no, I went to my bookcase on March the 13th and pulled out the superintendent's handbook and looked for the chapter that said how to deal with a worldwide pandemic. There is no chapter. There will be for whoever's next. But as of now, there was no chapter. There was no guidance as how to deal with this. And I'm not singing the blues. Everyone is dealing with this. Every other school superintendent, every school board member, all across the country, we're dealing with this issue of how do we reopen, because we have a number of parents and families. We did a survey, 65 to 70% of them want their children back in school, but another 35% don't. And now we see our teachers. Our teachers are really afraid. So it's just a tough situation to be in because if we reopen, then we're satisfying those parents and families that want and need their children back in school. But we're also potentially risking the health and safety of some of our employees. If we don't reopen, then those children are left still again at home. And not to mention that we may be having to furlough many of our employees who will not be returning to work, such as bus drivers and food service workers and parapros. So it's just a very challenging situation. But I signed up for this job, and I have a lot of good help around me. And at the end of the day, we're going to make the decision that protects for the safety of all of our folks, and then to provide them an education and meet them no matter where they are in school or at home.
So, Dr. Hightower, what are your thoughts on how coronavirus is being handled between from the school district? What suggestions do you have from from your perspective and your experience as leader?
I know the district has put a lot of thought and a lot of hard work on. So first, I want to compliment on them on doing a lot of work. I have been listening to some of the conversations that they've had, and I know a lot of work and a lot of thought has gone into this process. And this isn't mandated; it's come down that if we don't apply by it, we could lose funding. But I know that our first priority must be school safety. We must make sure that we're open in a safe manner for everyone. And I know we've looked at we must offer an online version, and I know the superintendent is going to do that. One of my thoughts, and I've not had a chance to ask the district, but I know they're looking at an online program. My question is, if we're having an online is there a way that students can be online and be in real time with their classroom teacher so that if they're because I've gotten several calls from different parents who are having a problem because they can't get the same robust or some of the same courses online that their students are going to need either to graduate or to finish. So has there been given any thought to, if we have to go back to school, our parents choose not to send their children back to school, that they can have the same robust and some of the same courses that right now I'm hearing that they're not going to be able to have because of the limited amount of classes that's going to be online. So that would be one thing that I would really want to look into. What is it that we can do to make sure that those students who are in special situation get those classes that they need and can still work from home because they have some health issues that they're doing? I know that with the modern technology that we have, we can have Zoom and talk to anybody anywhere. Yesterday, I listened to 1,000 people singing all over this country. So is it any thought being given to where students can be at home, but have real time with their teacher in the classroom, getting real time learning so that those students who are seniors or whatever, having those medical issues or needing some special classes can get those and not be forced to come back into a brick and mortar situation because they have to have those courses. With that being said, now, the other part of that, safety, it has to be the number one priority for our students, for our parents, and for everyone. Myself, I had to help my family to make that decision. And it was very personal for me. I have a sister who died of respiratory failure. And I had to look at my little niece and nephew's eyes and say, yes, you cannot go back to school because one of you has asthma. And so having to make that decision, and I understand they're tough decisions. I know, Rocky, I know these are tough decisions, but we've got to make the best decision, not just for some, but for all students, for all our teachers. And I think if we can involve teachers at the beginning, because teachers are very, very, very resourceful, and so is administrators. If we could sit down with teachers and administrators, I think we could come up with something, getting input from them. I understand, I know I've listened to them. I thought the task force and the school board assumed that teachers had been involved from the beginning, was not something. So now Mr. Hannah said I read 130 some letters the other day, and I listened to you read all of them, but the last 20, Rocky. So I know that your heart is in there, but what do we do so that we make sure that we include the teachers, the bus drivers, and all of those stakeholders up front to get that? I think if we sit down with teachers and really listen, and they can come up with some really neat ideas. The task force did a phenomenal job, but I think they need a framework from which to work from so that they could have given us input from a framework that we had gotten from all of our stakeholders, especially the teachers who are on the front line, the bus drivers, and those persons who are going to be on the front line to make sure that this happens. Yes, we must get back in school, but we got to do it so that we make sure that our students, our teachers, and our staff are all in a safe position. If that doesn't happen, then we got to make sure that we are offering those courses so that parents are not forced to send their students back to school because they don't have the courses. It's what I've been getting from some of our constituents, that they've been forced to send them back, not that they want to, but in order for them to graduate and have the things that they need, they are being forced to go back. The other one is childcare. And this is impacting especially some of our most underserved populations. Childcare, you got to be at work. You don't have any choice, so you got to send your students back to school. That's something that's bigger than the superintendent. That's a society issue. So those are all things that I've been thinking about. But I really would like to get some input. Or so how can we make sure that we're using technology? I know Mr. Superintendent has audited the computers, and we're going to have those. But how do we make sure that those students with special needs, special places for graduation and whatever, have the health courses that they're going to need in order to be on graduate?
Some really good questions. So maybe I can recap for you. But the first one that really stood out that Dr. Hightower posed was in regards to doing Zoom classes. I'm going to correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hightower, but is there any, was there any thought or consideration to allow students to attend class live in Zoom? I would assume something similar to a platform like how we're having, where a teacher would instruct live and the students can be at home or in the safety of, wherever they are to attend class.
So do you ask me that question, Rebecca? Okay. So to Dr. Hightower's point, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but tomorrow I'm going to present a plan to the Leon County School Board that I think is going to make parents really happy, and I'm very excited about it. It took us a while to get there to make sure we had the technology, the bandwidth, and the other things that were going to be required. But to her point, we heard it from parents. They want live interaction, live instruction from their teachers on a daily basis. We heard that last spring. I didn't want to make a promise to them unless I knew we could deliver. But tomorrow night, we'll be making an announcement to the school board that addresses just that issue, because I heard it as well. Some of the courses were being limited. Is there a way for us to do it in real time? And I think we're going to be able to pull it off. And I'm really excited about it, and also help us with the number of kids that are physically in the classroom. I'm proud that we've now made the decision to go to one-to-one with devices. We've ordered 32,500 computers. So third grader at Bond Elementary will have the same device as a fifth grader at Bucklake, or an eighth grader at NIMS, or a senior at Childs. They'll all have the same learning device that all of their content will be loaded into, one place to access. So I'm really excited about the future. We needed this little shove to get us there, but quite honestly, we should have done this years ago.
Nice. So just to be clear, you're saying that there has been thought on hosting a teaching class to students live, such as using a Zoom platform. Yes?
Again, tomorrow night, I think the community is going to be very excited to hear some of the adjustments we've made that will accommodate just that.
Okay. And in regards to safety, I know that both you and Dr. Hightower mentioned safety. Were there any plans to protect the students who are coming back to school?
Yeah, we had that task force met. We've been working side by side with the Department of Health, Leon County Department of Health, the administrators from our local hospitals, to develop best practices as far as social distancing, the wearing of masks and other PPE, the disinfecting and sanitizing of our student workspaces, how we can spread out in cafeterias, what do lunches look like, to do pediatric assessments of all children, all 33,000 children when they arrive on our campus, to do temperature checks, to make sure their breathing is okay. So we have a lot of protocols that we have put in place for the reopening, as a lot of hard work on the part of my staff and guidance given by those members of the task force.
If you became Keisha, if you became superintendent, you would be coming into the middle of all these changes, the coming at the end of all this pandemic. How do you think you will be able to handle basically what Rocky has been having to do for the past few months?
Okay, well, first of all, when the pandemic first kicked off, I would have, being that the governor says nobody's left behind, everybody's graduating, everybody's going to the next grade. At that point, we would have stopped in the process of that grade level and continued on into the next grade level, except for those who maybe struggle or have some education problems or issues that they're not able to go on to the next level. So I will make adjustments with that. Also, during this time, I would have established a database. I know we have databases for the FCAT, what was scored, and it follows, and some teachers, administration can look at it. But I would also have come up with a database. It would have each student. How am I communicating with the student? Is it the grandparents? Is it the parents? Is it the student themselves? How can I help them? So that way you're not only jumping ahead for the next year on the next grade level and getting ahead of the game, you're also establishing yourself in case this happens again. So you have the student, they're in the database, you know how they're taught, you know who I'm speaking to, you know what grade level, you know the FCAT. It's everything about this student in that database for the next teacher can look back and say, you know what, this student stays at home with his mom. He doesn't stay with his dad. He stays with his grandmother. So this is how we need to work the student. This is how they are being taught, even their teaching methods. Like I was telling one of the parents, if I have a class of 20, 15 of those students most likely can work by themselves. It's that other 5 that might need some more intimate time and intimate structure. So I will have to find out, how do those 5 students learn? Is it with colors? Is it with numbers? Is it with fruit? Is it with Zoom? No matter how they learn, I need to pay a little bit more close attention with them. Maybe give them Zoom twice a day compared to the rest of the class that I can visit once a day. So you're orchestrating yourself the best need for this child. Safety wise, if those 5 students need to come on campus, I would have one teacher to 5 students ratio. I would try to maybe give it outside. I definitely wouldn't be inside because of this pandemic and because of my personal history that I've known people who has it or has passed. I just will be about it a whole different certain way, perspective, measure. The computers are great. However, when you're at war, which we're fighting a war, but we're fighting an unseen enemy, which you can't fight. So you have to be in safety first. You have to shelter yourself. You have to be prepared for anything in a war that you can't see the enemy. So with saying that, I would have very minimum back in the school system. Knowing my students at the time, taking to see the passion of how do we communicate with them, just in case, because the new norm is everything may be shut down. We might not be able to go into the school again, but safety is first. You have some parents who are concerned about, I have to go to work. One of my friends, she works at the VA. She has a 9-year-old. And she said, well, I have to send him back to school because I have to go to work. And I said, how old is he? He's like 9. She said, well, Miss Keisha, he'll sleep all day. I said, no, he won't. What you do, you get that phone device and you turn it on. You tell him to get up at 9 o'clock to start his work. You have that phone device where you see his every move. Okay, 10 o'clock, he's doing that. Not only that, because we're in Tallahassee, we can fight and we can petition more for certain rules and structure because the governor is here. You're watching him at home. You're asking the state or the government, wherever they work for 2 more 15-minute breaks on top of that to see my child work at home. So that parent might not like the fact, but the child is safe. The child is at home. She can see her child at home working on a package. She can see her child at home working on that computer. So you're still dealing basically mostly with that 5 that might have to come to the school. But once again, it just breaks down to that database. Who am I working with? How do they learn? Who am I speaking to? Is the child, the grandparents, the parents? What's the best measure and the techniques for that child and the individual? And the same as the teachers. Nobody wants to come home and bring something that they can't see because it's a ever-ending battle as for right now because don't nobody know.
So, Ms. Keisha, being that we are in the middle of all the changes going on, do you think that, let's say if you did become superintendent, do you think time would allow you to be able to develop such a database and allow it for it to be effective?
Well, I'm gonna go back to the military once again. It's a what do you call it? What would you call it? Hurry up and sit down situation. Because right now nobody's going anywhere. So we have to reassure the safety for the parents, but they also have to be patient because nobody's moving anywhere. We're gonna have to be patient in this pandemic. We're just gonna have to be upfront. You have to be, and then superintendent, you have to be super real. Sit down, be patient. We're gonna get back to, we probably won't get back to the norm. But however, in this process, we're not going anywhere. We're not going nowhere. You still need to be educated, which you can, but it's a process of being patient and sitting down and teaching as a new method. That's what we're looking at. And yes, we have time for the database because it should already been established. It should be a lifelong database. You come in elementary and you stay in Leon County, by high school, that same database will follow you.
Now, Rocky, is there anything in place similar, like what Keisha is suggesting?
So we have a student information system called Focus, which manages, all the emergency contacts information, who the child lives with, or other people in the family that can serve as emergency contacts. But to her point, the data is only as good as it's updated. We have a lot of our parents, they'll move and not get us their new updated information, phone numbers. So, what we have in this database is only as good as it gets updated. And a lot of that, we rely on our parents to keep us informed as things change over the course of their child's K-12 experience. But yeah, to her point also, in the spring, we realized we had a huge digital divide. We had kids that didn't have devices. We had kids that didn't have connectivity. And that's why this summer, we know by child, and they have filled out an intent form in Focus who wants to return or not. We know by family who has reliable connectivity, access to the internet, and who doesn't, so we can help provide them resources to get connected to the internet, because with a device without the internet, it's useless. So we are doing the best we can to track our families, and a lot of our principals know those families best. And as a former principal myself, and I know Dr. Hightower during her time as a principal, they know their families for the most part. They know the needs of their families. So we have to lean on our school administrators and our teachers because they know their children as well.
Okay, awesome. And question, so in regards to the students who are at Title I schools, are there any additional efforts to help them get the support that they need to learn? I know for a lot of students who do attend Title I schools, a lot of times they struggle with the ability to focus or the ability to get the attention that they need when they are in school. So what are some of the solutions to help them when they're home and away from the teachers? Rocky.
So that's the $1 million question is, those kids getting left behind. One thing we implemented last year was a VPK all day program in our Title I schools, because we knew we had families that couldn't afford the wraparound services. And so we made Title I dollars available for those families so the child could stay in those programs all day long. We also committed additional resources and flexible spending, because a lot of Title I schools, as Dr. Hightower would tell you, they get extra money for staffing and things like that, but those principals don't have a lot of discretionary or non-discretionary money that's flexible. So we increased their student allocation to help with field trips, because we know kids couldn't afford to go on field trips and have those enrichment experiences. That's a big part of a child's education, whether it's going to the Riley House to learn about our cultural history here in Leon County, or to the Challenger Center, or to have some of those experiences. We wanted to make sure that all of our Title I students had those options. I'll tell you this, Daryl Jones is a godsend. That guy, him and Miss Bowen, and they are such strong advocates for our Title I schools, and they hold me accountable, and they should. That's their job. We have a separation of powers. You have an elected superintendent and then elected board members, but I can assure you, Daryl Jones and Joy Bowen, whether it's Rocky Hanna or Pam Hightower or Keisha Washington as superintendent, they're going to hold us accountable to ensure that those Title I schools are getting everything they need to ensure for the success of those students.
So, Dr. Hightower, you have experience working with Title I schools. How would you respond to what Mr. Rocky Hanna just said?
I have spent over 25 years in Title I school. That's where I spent most of my career, in Title I schools. So I've seen up close and personal the needs that the students have in the Title I schools. Yes, and Mr. Hanna is correct. We do get those schools do get additional funding. But if those fundings that we get in the Title I schools is allocated for teachers, then you don't have a lot of resources. And it looks like a lot of money. And I know I've been a principal and I've heard my counterparts say, oh, but you get Title I dollars. But if I get Title I dollars and I've got to buy teachers with it, I can't buy the resources. I can't do those extra things. I can't get the resource teachers that I need in order to make that difference to help close that achievement gap for our children. Yes. When I was principal at Carolyn Bavard some 20 some years ago, we opened a community center over in the projects over in 1010 Basin Street. The reason for having that center there because we put computers there, we put teachers that would be able to help students after school with their homework. We did parent workshops in the community because we were in the community. We were able to get, I think we had one in all of our project areas. We no longer have those. Those were to help parents. Parents get home from work 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. They don't have time to do homework with students. And some of them can't do the homework. Yes, we have the 21st century. But if I can't get from school to home, then I can't stay up at the 21st century. So I think bringing those community centers back in the community to serve those students who need that extra help would be something that I would love to see have happen back in there. Title I dollars are there to make sure that those needs of students are met. One of the questions I got as a Title I director, can I pay for field trips? No, you can't pay for field trips because if you're doing state and local dollars, and I'm glad to hear that we gave them extra money for that, we couldn't take away. If a Title I school earns 35 units, they must get 35 units. The Title I dollars are above and beyond. It's kind of like the cherry on top of the sundae. It's above and beyond to meet those needs of those students that we're talking about, the underserved, the underprivileged students who don't have internet connectivity, who don't have computers, who not have some of the resources that we take for granted. So yes, we need to make sure that we're using those Title I dollars to make sure we are closing achievement gap that happened before COVID. We didn't just have an achievement gap to happen now. We had that all of my career in Title I schools. But you tell me, those teachers that I have worked with in the Title I schools are some of the most dedicated teachers that you're going to ever see. Not only in Title I schools, all of our teachers dedicated because we have a greater number of students in our Title I schools who are having problems reading, math, and science. But every school has a pocket of students, called that bottom 25 students, that we must address those needs. But in back to the Title I schools, I have 98% of my students in the Title I school that I've got to address those needs for. But yes, we must make sure that we're giving resources, not the same, because we can't give them the same and expect to get something different. We got to give above and beyond in human and fiscal resources in order to close that achievement gap that we have in our Title I schools.
Okay, so tell me, what would you say, Dr. Hightower? How do you think the students would be able to manage and maintain their responsibilities as students, and specifically students that are at Title I schools who have a hard time focusing? How do you think that these changes with coronavirus is going to affect them as students?
I think that we've had mental health issues. We've had students who have traumatized. Have been in our schools proud of this. I think with all the unrest that we're having in our country now, we've had some very traumatic things that happen in our country. Right down the street from Bond Elementary School, Riley School, where we've had some shootings and some things that happen in our community. It doesn't just start happening now. I think because we're all home, we've seen it, it's bringing more attention. I remember as principal at Bond Elementary School, I had 3 of my students murdered while I was principal there. Those students there, nobody came. So we got to make sure that we have mental health counselors that are able, not just guidance counselors. We need real mental health counselors to come into the schools to help with some of the trauma that our students are dealing with. There's not a child that I don't believe that can't learn if not given the proper education. We've got to have people standing. It matters who we put in front of our children as leaders and as teachers. And I think Leon County has some of the finest teachers anywhere. And so I will put them up against anywhere. Some of our Title I teachers, we have some issues that we must address in the Title I school. The only way we're going to do that is going to make sure that we put the resources, I say the human and the fiscal resources. We have reading coaches, math coaches. We need resources. We need smaller class size because we have so many issues that we must deal with. Like I said, I'm boots on the ground. I'm in Title I school. That's what I have done for the last 20 years of my career. I've been on the school. Let me give you an example. Last year, 14 kids in the classroom. By the time I get there, 10 o'clock, 5 of those boys have been sent out of the classroom for either having some discipline problems or something going on. There's some underlying problems that we got to address first before we can teach them. Can they learn? Absolutely. One of them was a level 4, but there was some other issues keeping those students from learning. We did that in 1 year at Western Elementary School. It was the only F school in the district. We went there, and because of some very capable teachers, looking at the data, making sure we had programs in place for those students, we were able to take that school from an F to a B in 1 year. We can do that for all of our schools. We just got to make sure we're putting the human and fiscal resources there, knowing where we are and what it's going to take to move us where we need to go. And if we do that, I think that we'll see a different. We won't be looking at Title I. We will be looking at schools and not whether they're Title I. No one zip code should direct who they are and where they can go. If that were the case, then I wouldn't be standing here before you today as a woman with a PhD and having the rich experience that I've had in my career. So no, our zip code does not define who we are. And I told my kids that every day at Bond School, at Western, that does not define, nobody defines me but me. So we have to make sure we've got to instill that in our students. We got to set high expectation for our students and expect them to rise. Les Brown says no one rises to low expectations. So we got to make sure that we set high expectations for our students and hold them accountable, hold our parents and hold our teachers. And if we do that, we're all going to rise high.
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. And Ms. Keisha, give me some input on you and your thoughts about Title I schools. I know this is some challenging times for families as well as it is for the district, as well as it is for teachers. But what recommendations do you think you would be able to bring to the table to help those students who can't focus and who wouldn't be able to perform well studying online?
Like Dr. Hightower said, it's been this way since forever. The Title I school system, they've been in lag, and everybody's time it's time to gap the bridge. It shouldn't even be a gap at this point. I graduated in 92, and that's been a minute. Me being a Title I student and my son's going to a couple of schools that were Title I schools, it's going to take the parents. It's going to take the parents. However, when you don't have a home for the parents, you have to come with a new invention. You have to do a better system. You have to come where you have to go meet the parents where they at. But nobody wants to go to Holton Street. Nobody wants to go to Joe Louis. Nobody wants to go to Basin Street. Nobody wants to go to Ebony Gardens and say, hey, your child is failing. Hey, we didn't hear from you. Hey, can we help you in any way? When students see that their teachers or even administration can come to where they live, I guarantee you their whole world would change because they know somebody cares. When the students can actually see that you care for me, you're going above and beyond, their whole outlook of where they even come to respect you as a teacher will change because, they will believe in you. Not only that, for the school system, get the city involved. Tallahassee is small. It's very small. There's nothing for the city to be involved, before the pandemic, to help fund some of these things that we need in Title I schools. We have millionaires here. I heard we got a billionaire. Get them involved. There's people that know somebody, that know somebody, that know somebody, but Tallahassee lacks the fight of it. Tallahassee, yes, Florida is a retirement state. However, we still got to keep fighting. We still got to go far and beyond. We are very relaxed here, which we shouldn't be. We should still have the fight, but you got to go meet them where they at. Yes, there might not be a home or parents there for them, but you got to go meet them, see what's going on. Hey, can I help you? If you can't contact them, if there's no communication, hey, what's going on? Let's go do a home check. Let's go do this. Let's go do a beyond my job. And I commend the teachers, and I'm not putting anybody down. I commend what you have done and what you established at this point. But me, as a Title I student, a Title I parent, there's more that we have to get involved with. Because we're going to go in the same cycles. We're going to be behind the desk, pushing papers, pushing pencils, and getting those who we can without doing the home checks, without doing a little extra curriculum that we can do. Like, we have the number 1 HBCU here in the state of Florida. Well, we have the number HBCU period in the nation, FAMU, Florida Agricultural Mechanical University.
Yes.
We need to team up our mentors with our mentees. Say, for instance, my son was an engineer. Team them up with somebody that does engineering. If you want to do nursing, team them up with somebody to do nursing. Just don't give me a mentor because I'm here. I need the hours. This is what I knew. Give them a platform. How do they do? How are they progressing? Give us feedback. Put that also in that database. So we know that we are striving for perfection and successful in our students. In the military, we had a binder. It's called I Love Me binder for all our accomplishments. And that's what I tell my parents. Everything your child has done since the age of 4 years old, put that all in that binder. You're going to get your resumes from this binder. You're going to get your scholarships from this binder. You're going to get a method that you thought maybe never existed. And it's going to open your eyes to say, hey, you know what? Let's go re-enter this. Let's go visit this. By the time you get in high school, get you some internships or volunteer in those three majors that you might want to major in. That way it's on your resume. You've been exposed to these three different things and you can go on to be successful. And I have so much I want to say. I know we got a little bit of time, but that's what my business is. It's the Next Level Educational Resource Center. No matter what you're trying to do from the ages of 2 to 99, I sit down with you and help you become successful in that. And that's why I have the love for my students, because there's some that get it, but there's a lot that's been left behind. And it's smaller things that we can actually close that gap to help them in this process.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit. We have some comments and questions from the audience, from the community, and so I wanted to ask those questions to you all. The first question would kind of ties into the conversation that we've been having. I think, Rocky, you might be best fit to answer this question, but a comment came in asking about food insecurity. What are some of the challenges you guys have faced for the families who have been struggling to feed their kids before? And what are some of the plans for the students who are going to be staying home? What is the help is the question, to help those families feed their kids?
Great. So let me real quick jump back to the previous question that Dr. Hightower and Keisha were responding to about kids and counseling and some of the trauma they've experienced, not just with COVID, but all of the social injustice and unrest we've seen in our country. There's a lot that our kids have seen that they aren't going to be able to unsee, and we have to be able to address that first and foremost when they return. We have to prepare to protect them from both physical and mental harm, and part of that is understanding the trauma that they are dealing with. I'm proud to say over the last 2 years, we now have mental health counselors in all of our schools across the district in a wonderful partnership with this village. In addition, we have behavior specialists at all of our elementary schools, and we've done that over the last 2.5 years. As far as food and food insecurities, we know that a significant number of our children come to school and the only nutritious meal they get every day is at school with our breakfast and lunch program. That was a big concern of ours when we left on March the 13th. How could we still provide food and nutrients to our children who were relying on these meals? We immediately instituted through the Department of Agriculture and other partners. We propped up 22 locations. My family and I even went out into some of these Section 8 housing complexes and fed kids. To date, we've distributed, since over that 4-month period, over 300,000 meals to our students. I'm very, very, very proud of that. And to your point, the children that choose to stay at home, the stay-at-home option, we are going to open the schools up so those parents and families can pull through and get food and take back home to them. We'll provide food and breakfast and lunch to those kids in school, and those kids that aren't, we're going to have that open for parents and families to be able to pull through and get that. And then we also may be able to use this time some of our school buses to help move some of those meals around to other locations in those specific school zones. But we know the feeding of our children is of vital importance, whether they're in school or not. And that's the responsibility that we take very seriously.
Okay, Dr. Hightower, your thoughts on food insecurities?
Yes, and I agree. As a principal at a Title I school, yes, many of our students come to school, they're hungry. We had a superintendent used to say they come cold, wet, and hungry, and we have to make sure we're meeting all of their needs. As a principal at Bond and all of my Title I schools, we always made sure that our students, regardless of what time they came in, if they needed breakfast, that they were fed. And this summer I saw firsthand some of the things that the students were getting food where they could come through the schools and get the food. And we will continue that as superintendent. We must continue to make sure that those needs are met. Well, and I'm glad to hear that those families will still be able to get that. In the summer, up until 18 years old, they had food sites within the community before this COVID-19, we had those. And then this year, because the situation in school being out, those were much more available in the community. I know when we first started, I was getting calls about the kids couldn't get from one area to the next. And then the superintendent moved those into the Bond area so those kids could get, and into the Western area so they could get, just making sure that we touch all of it, the State Road 12, the Miccosukee, all of those areas. Now, it's going to be a little bit difficult if parents are working, how we're going to meet those needs, but I know that's something we're going to think about and talk about, how we're going to meet the needs of those families who at work and those students can't get to the school to meet those needs. Taking the bus into the community is an excellent idea, or to a start with those kids that can't get there because mom had to leave to go to work at 6 and does not get home until after 6 in the afternoon. So making sure we are meeting the students where they are, whether we have to take the buses into the community or to the churches, wherever, to make sure that those students are fed.
Well, I'm glad you actually said that, Dr. Hightower, because another question that was asked by one of the commenters was about the bus routes. A lot of the families here in our community struggle with the timing and whether the bus coming on time or not. What would be your suggestions to improve those bus routes? And then Rocky and Keisha, I'll let you guys answer as well afterwards.
As a principal, I know Mr. Hannah can attest to that, buses was the issue that we dealt with, and especially at the beginning of the year, trying to make sure that we get in all of our buses. The main issue that I had as a principal, and Mr. Hannah can better answer this as a superintendent because I've been a little bit removed from that, but trying to find qualified drivers. And I know that has always been an issue. We start off every year missing bus drivers. And right now, I think it's going to be a bigger issue this year as we're facing the COVID-19, making sure that we have enough bus drivers for the students. And if they don't, then how do we close that gap? I think at one time they raised the salary for them, but they can go other places and get even more money. And now that we're going to put 65, 55 students on a bus and hope that they wear their mask and hope that they're not infected, and then try to get them to school, I think it's going to raise the level of insecurities for even our bus drivers. Now, to the fact of how are we going to get them to school on time, that it's going to require that we need drivers. We need more drivers. We need more drivers in order to ensure that happens. I know that our buses pick up our high school, then they pick up middle school, and then they pick up high school, elementary, and then middle school. My greater concern is how are we going to get those buses clean, more so than getting them to school? How are we going to get them clean in between that time of picking up those students and make sure that if there has been someone that was infected on the bus, that we're cleaning them in between? I know drivers give them 3 or 4 hours a day. When are we going to have time, or who's going to be responsible for making sure that those buses are clean in a manner that we can put our students on between those runs, because we're having to use the same buses for all 3 of those runs. So that would be a greater concern of mine, is rather than getting them to school, is getting them there safely on a bus that has been clean and making sure we're there. I know bus drivers has always been an issue. We will look at that as I go in. If I go in, I will make sure to evaluate that to see what we can do better to make sure that we're getting the best route. I know we tried something last year to make sure that routing was that we could do something even better with the routings, and that didn't go as well as we had hoped it would go. So that would be something I would definitely look into to see what we can do to make sure that we're getting the most money for our bucks, for our bang, for our money, and getting our students to school safe on time. I know drivers is the biggest issue that we have with that.
And Keisha, how about you? What would your suggestions be?
Like I said earlier, I would try to have it that the 15 out of the 20 students in the classroom is at home. So I'm dealing with the 5 in the classroom if they need to come to school. And if they need to come to school, I know if it's realistically, but maybe 5 on a bus, and they would have to be at drastic measures. But you got to know who you're dealing with in order for that to happen. The 15 out of the 20, should be able to flow on their own. They should be able to do their work on their own at home. Between the computers and paper generated work, they should be fine. I just don't see putting lives at risk for an education, because I'm seeing lives lost right now, and that's why I'm adamant about it. I'm seeing lives lost at school levels. I'm seeing lives lost at elderly levels, and to put anybody back on a bus, or like you say, they have to be extremely clean, but to put anybody into the school system, a school classroom period, with more than 2 to 3 people is very dangerous because you just don't know. You know who's asymptomatic. You know who really has it. You don't know if they've been around somebody who has it. It's just so much that's at risk, and I wouldn't feel comfortable with that on my hand with somebody's dying, knowing I could have um, incorporated or orchestrated for them to stay home. Speaking with the parents, so it's going to go a little more in depth now. You're speaking with the parents, and Florida has no, there is no law age that your child can stay at home, so you don't have to worry.
So I'm sorry to cut you off, Keith, but are you saying that if you were superintendent, you wouldn't have opened up schools at all?
To a certain extent, not to a mask, no. And I would have had to deal with the consequences, and I would have had to put more fight. That's where your fight come in. That's where you come and orchestrate it. Teachers, what are you going to do? How do you feel about it? How does your personal life feel about it? Is it affecting you? We can do distance, go in front of the Capitol. You in Tallahassee, you at the Capitol. Put your foot down so those who are not here. Orchestrate that, fight for it.
Rocky, you being a superintendent, was the ultimate decision to open schools your decision, or did it come from a position higher than you?
No, I mean, so you want to speak about the buses real quick, or do you want me just to go skip the bus issue and go straight to the reopening?
Well, not you, Skip. Let's say more table.
Okay, all right. So as far as the reopening of schools, the commissioner issued an emergency order 2 weeks ago that said all schools will be open 5 days a week for students who wanted to attend by the end of August. So, you know, and the Department of Education controls our funding. One of the misconceptions about the superintendent doesn't set the BSA, the base student allocation. I don't raise taxes locally. That's dictated by the state and the Florida Education Finance Program. So unless we want to potentially suffer strong financial implications and ramifications by not reopening, you know, right now I don't see we have much of a choice. And to Keisha's point, look, my daddy named me Rocky for a reason. I'm not afraid to stand up and fight, and I will do that every single day for our kids. I've done it with the governor's reckless expansion of charters and voucher programs at the expense of our schools. And if this is a case where we need to stand up and fight, we're gonna do the right thing. And I know Dr. Hightower will also.
Be clear, are you saying, Rocky, that to be clear, Rocky, are you saying that the decision ultimately is it yours, or is it the governor that makes that decision to open up schools or not?
Well, it's funny because the governor had a press conference today and he was quick to say that wasn't his emergency order. It was Commissioner Corcoran's emergency order. So they're not giving us a lot of flexibility at the local level. They have made it very clear that if you want to be funded this year, that you must be open 5 days a week for brick and mortar for all those students and families who want to attend. And that's the plan we currently have in place. Again, guys, we talked about the pros and the cons. There are 65% of our parents expect our schools to be open. They're taxpayers and they demand a right to a brick and mortar education. Then we have the other side of the equation where children are staying home. The children we have figured out, it's a parent's choice. The issue and the problem is really with our employees. And we know overall students have not seen as many adverse impacts with this virus. Much of the research says they're not transmitters. So the big issue is with our ensuring for the safety of our employees, whether the bus drivers, food service workers, teachers, parapros, and the others that are on the front lines each and every day. So those are the decisions that will weigh heavily on me and other members of the school board. But we also learned that this situation is very fluid. Things change every day. So just because here we are on, I don't even know what day it is, July the 20th, we're saying one thing. That doesn't mean 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, things could be completely different. If I've learned anything, I've learned that. I was brushing my teeth on Monday. And I thought, what day is this? July the 13th. It's only been 4 months. It feels like it's been 4 years we've been dealing with this. So we have to have plans upon plans upon plans because conditions are changing each and every day.
Okay, and so I'll let you go back and respond back to the discussion about the bus routes. I know that there are some changes that's going to be, or suggestions that changes need to be made to update the routes. Are there anything in plan for that before we get too far off and into the
There
conversation?
are no plans this year. So last year, our transportation system it's about a $12 million budget, but we only generate 7.5 million from funding. Now, our students get money for class. They also get $300 per student for FTE for transportation, but our transportation funding doesn't cover the cost of expenses for transportation. So we partner with a company that promised to increase the efficiency of our routes, to reduce the cost of fuel, to reduce the number of routes we needed. So as drivers retired or moved on, we might not need to replace them. And it didn't go as well as we had expected. And we immediately pivoted and got back on track. But it took us a week. For the first week of last year, it's no secret, we had some challenges. I took ownership of it. At the end of the day, the buck stops with me, as it would for Superintendent Washington or Superintendent Hightower. The buck stopped with me. I took responsibility. We made the changes we needed to, and I've learned from that experience. As far as the routes this year, the bus stops this year, they'll be exactly the same. James Cole, our new Director of Transportation, and our route supervisors have done an amazing job of reducing routes over the course of the summer, not eliminating any stops. Everything will be the same. But to Dr. Hightower's point, we have to pay our bus drivers more. One of the first things I promised Reverend Bernie with the Greater St. Mark's Church is we had a lot of talk and conversation, and education is about teachers. And I get it. I'm married to a teacher. But a lot of our other folks, the support staff, our bus drivers, food service workers, those people have been left behind for many, many years. So we've increased our minimum wage from $9.30 an hour to $11.80 an hour. Our bus drivers and food service workers have received between a 15 and a 20% pay increase. It still doesn't come close to what they deserve. I mean, I've seen what a bus driver, I've seen that job. I don't want that job. But we have to have bus drivers to deliver our students safely to and from school each and every day. And we have to quit telling them how valuable they are and start showing them how valuable they are. And that can be done through giving them raises. But to put someone on buses today in the midst of the COVID virus and put 55 kids on a bus, we're going to have a hard time recruiting drivers and keeping drivers. And again, with all the contact tracing that goes on and the quarantine that goes on, it's going to present a very formidable challenge. But it comes with the job.
Okay, and so we're winding down here. I want to
one other real quick. The other thing that I've committed to this year to help with the sanitizing and disinfecting of our buses, we will have bus assistants on every single one of our buses, not just ESE buses. All of our buses this year will also come with a bus assistant that can help in between those runs of the cleaning and the disinfecting.
No, thank you. So I know that we're winding down here, getting closer towards the end. So I want to make sure that I'm asking all the questions that the community is asking. So we're going to go back to some of the coronavirus concerns. And one in particular is someone wants to know what are the measures put in place to to monitor the teachers, especially those who are going to be teaching the classes online. Rocky.
I'm not sure that I understand the question. So this virus is completely different than, just the flu. I mean, we have all of the quarantining and the contact tracing. We've struggled just over the last several months here locally. We've seen the uptick in the number of viruses, the uptick in the infections. And so the concerning thing is that we can't even manage 10% of the employees we have back at work. We've had 3 principals that have battled with COVID. Painters, electricians. We've tried to open camps up to get our football and volleyball kids back going again. We had to shut those down because we had coaches that got sick. We had some players that tested positive. So, I mean, it's been a mess. It's been very challenging. So now to bring back potentially 20,000 students and, all of our teachers and all those employees and manage the contact tracing and the quarantining, it's going to present quite the challenge. And that's why we've had to lay out plans that will include that direct face-to-face instruction so we can meet people, no matter if they're having a quarantine from home, to give them instruction, live instruction, no matter where they are, either in school or at home.
I didn't want to bring resources. A member of the audience was also wanting to know what ways are you all going to bring resources to more resources to those Title I schools, Rocky?
So we again added an additional $300,000 to help those principals with field trips and with other flexible spending that schools in other parts of town didn't receive, because we know that the fundraising and the parents, I mean, it's hard. It's just challenging. Let's just leave it at that. So we need to do the best we can as a community to ensure that those students have the same resources for enrichment activities and trips and experiences that our schools in other parts of our community have. And we know we have a number of our schools that have booster-thons that raise lots of money and other things, but that's why it was important for us to give that furniture money back to our principals. That was cut off back in 2008, and the principals had just been making do. So we've given $1 million now, or additional $1 million a year, to help with furniture and equipment, to help with the arts and athletics in all of our schools, to try to do those things to ensure that those children who are Title I schools, yes, they may get more money for staffing, but they don't get as many resources for the flexible spending, discretionary spending, and even just for teacher recognition things, for luncheons, the little things. Teachers didn't get it. They knew when they got in this profession, they were probably not going to have a house at the beach, right? They got into it because their love for children and their love for our future and our community. But we need to at least to be able to do the little things for them to ensure that they feel special and to let them know how valued they are.
And so, Dr. Hightower, Ms. Keisha, I want to be able to give you all the opportunity to respond to this as well. So first, Dr. Hightower, if you can tell me, what do you think if you became superintendent, you would be kind of having to be responsible of the teachers and the staff. In what ways would you be monitoring the teachers, making sure that they aren't coming to school infected, as well as the students? What systems would you put in place?
I know the district has already been listening to some of the conversations. I know they're doing temperature checks when the students arrive at school. Teachers, I was at the district office a couple months ago, and immediately I had to have my temperature checked before I could even get in the building. Those things are already in place, and we must continue to do those things. One of the things I really that has kind of given me a little heartburn and wondering where we are with this. Do we have a way of notifying every Leon County employee of, if you come in contact with someone in your home or you have it, what are the processes that we need to go through to make sure that we are not spreading this, that we're going through the right processes? That's the question that has come to me. What are we doing? I know that we've got to have something that we send out to everyone, whether you're a custodian, a bus driver, teacher, aide, or anyone. If you come in contact, I heard Mr. Dr. Cox say that you must let your principal know. But to the superintendent's point earlier, he said we have 10% of our faculty and staff that's back now, just on the campus now. And I think I heard Democrats say we had something like 25 people who have been impacted with it. And yesterday we had a fatality that someone passed with it. So my question is, do we have a good number of people that's affiliated with the school at this point, so that parents, and I know as a principal, as a teacher, if a child had head lice, we sent a letter home letting the parents know that somebody in that classroom, we didn't say who it was, but we said that someone in that classroom had head lice, so that parents could be aware of that. Is there a way that we're going to notify parents or families that someone has been infected in that child's classroom or the school, so that the school would be aware of it? I've been a principal. I understand that there's confidential, but can we give numbers at Vaughn Elementary, at Riley Elementary, at Killarn Lakes, wherever we've got a case? I see in the paper, Publix tells you if a case has been at Publix, a case has been at Sam's. But as a school district, are we making sure we are letting our people know that we've got cases, so that we can be aware? So this is not a disease that we need to hide. It is something that we need to make the public aware of, so that we can flatten the curve. But if we're not aware of that, and we've got people who are coming back and not going through the right protocol, and I know that we're going to do that, but I think we need to do it sooner rather than later, that we send it out to everyone. So if I have a person that I know that if my child has got it, I cannot go to the school. If I've got it, I can't not go. I've got to notify this person, got to notify this. I'm sure that there are even more cases out there now that we're not aware of, and the superintendent can't be aware of because they're not at school. But so how do we get to make sure that we're putting protocols in place to make sure that families are aware so that we can flatten the curve on this? The other thing is that we're going to have teachers. Someone asked about, Keisha asked about teachers at home. They're going to be at home. Those students are going to be at home. They're online teaching. The concern is for those students who are coming to the school. And I know we're doing temperature checks. They're coming up. We're doing all of that. They're on the bus. They've been on the bus for an hour sometime. They get to school. I've had kids who come to school with a temperature. Parent gave us some Tylenol that morning and sent them to school. If I knew that my child was in a classroom, that there was a COVID case, I may pay a little bit more attention to that and say, no, we need to keep you home today to see where this is going and not just give you some Tylenol. So I think communication is the key with this. We've got to make sure that we are communicating this with everyone. We're standing up. This is not something we need to hide. This is something we need to make sure. If we've got 50 cases, 100 cases, and we've not even gotten back into school yet, what is it going to look like once we get all of our students and all of our teachers and all of our staff and all of our bus drivers and all of our cafeteria workers there? How we're going to manage this and how we're going to make sure that all the stakeholders are aware of what's going on in our schools.
Okay, and so I'll give you an opportunity to answer, Keisha. We have just a few more minutes, so if you can answer briefly, please.
Like I said earlier, I'm not for going back to school. And unfortunately, like I said earlier as well, I have 2 sets of family members, households down south has dealt with this. So there's nobody with a title. There's no doctor, no superintendent, no mom, no practitioner. There's nobody can know that you have this the virus. So checking the temperature is not going to help at all, because within those households, one was asymptomatic. They thought it was a sinus. The other was on bed rest for 14 days. And then the other, nobody had a temperature. Even the one that was on bed rest, he did not have a temperature at all. So the temperature thing is not going to be suffice. It's not going to help. Like I said earlier, we're dealing with the enemy that we cannot see. And the best measures is to stay far from each other as possible. It's safety measures. And you bring all those children, especially my elementary students that like to touch and laugh and they want to come back. Unfortunately, at this moment, they will be sheltered from the world that we have known it from. And there's nothing we can do about it. And I know parents are saying, well, they need to be this. They want to come back to school and they need to be part of their friends. And unfortunately, we're not at a level that we can introduce them to the school right now safely. And it's unfortunately. So with the bus measures, cleaning them down thoroughly from here to, I would say for me, from here to December, the only people that will be going to work are the, what I want to call it, the custodians. They will be cleaning from here to December. You can do brick and mortar and you can do Zoom. Each teacher can drive by the school and still get funded. There's also a policy and procedure. There's a certain way that the federal funds, they just can't take federal funds just because they say they want to take it. There's also a process of them taking funds away that has to be established.
Okay.
So yes, we do need our funds. However, there's always a route about things. Have those teachers drive by. Hey, when you get finished teaching, drive by the school. You don't have to come in it, because I'm just so caught on the safety measures in life and it itself. And we're not at that point that we're ready to go back to school. We're not.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. This has been a very interesting and amazing conversation. This is a conversation that we all need to have as a community so that we can make the best decisions for our children. That's really who this is about, ultimately, making sure our kids are equipped with what they need so that they can be their best selves, and not allowing those rubrics to be defined by where they live or where they come from. And so I think this has been a very healthy conversation. I'd like to extend in opportunities for each of you all to have about 60 seconds each to basically explain to the community why you feel like you'd be the best superintendent Leon County needs at this time, especially when there are so many changes and so many sensitive decisions being made. Explain to the community why you should be trusted with such an important role. Keisha, I'll let you go first.
One of the reasons why I should be trusted with such important role with the students, because I have the passion for them. Like I said, the most lack that we have in Leon County schools are with our Title I students. I'm a Title I student. I'm very familiar with the Title I structure. I didn't just wake up and say I want to be superintendent. I've been to the houses. I've been with your students. I've been taking them home. I've been feeding them. I've been doing everything I can for them to have a successful school year. So in this process, we have to define them that they're ready for the work area. They're ready for college. They're ready for vocational trade. Whatever they're ready for, I have been processing them. I have been doing this as an unpaid teacher, unpaid para. I've been a volunteer. So I will be successful. I would return your calls. I will communicate with you as best as I could. I will make sure your child first have safety in all measures, in all circumstances. And I would do the best I could to be your superintendent.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, 60 seconds.
60 seconds, why I should be superintendent. I think my background, my experiences have provided me the opportunity to see education from all aspects in Leon County. I think I'm the best person because, like I said, I lead with my heart, but most of all, I understand people. I'm accessible, I'm open, and I know I will take everyone in consideration as we make decisions, and I will make sure that it's always about children, because that's what schools exist for, not for me, not for the superintendent, not for it exists because of children. So we need to make sure that we're providing the best education for our students. I am an instructional leader. I want to improve student achievement. I want to close the gap. I want to make sure that our students are learning in a safe and caring environment. I want to communicate. I want to bring uniformity to our district, and I want to make sure that we are always available and that we answer to the people that put us in that seat. It is not my seat, Keisha's seat, or Rocket. It is the people's seat.
Thank you. And Mr. Hanna, as current superintendent, what is it that you would like to say so that you're able to keep your seat as superintendent? 60 seconds, sir.
Yeah, 4 years ago, I did not have a record, and I have a record now, and it's a record that I'm very, very proud of. To learn more about my record and things I've accomplished over the last 3.5 years, I ask you to go visit me at rockyhanna.com. As a product of our public schools, I love this community. My wife's a classroom teacher of 25 years. I'm proud of what we've done with pre-K programs to get our kids ready for their K-12 experience, what we've done on the other end of the spectrum, totally revamping Lively Technical College to show kids there's not just one path. If you don't go to college, it's okay. We have lots of opportunities for good paying jobs and programs at Lively Technical College. So whether it's that, our school district had the 5th highest graduation rate in the state last year. There's a lot to be proud of. Financially, I told you all that we've done. We've reduced capital debt by $60 million, strengthened our emergency reserve, given $5 million of cash back to the classrooms. First and foremost, protected our students with trained, armed law enforcement officers in our schools, along with 50 security monitors, because nothing is more important. Our people and our parents need to be assured their children are going to be safe when they come to school. So again, it's a record that I'm very proud of. Go to rockyhanna.com to learn more about me. I just want to continue to build on the momentum that we've developed and have had over the last 3.5 years, and to continue to move Leon County schools forward in a positive manner.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening. This has been a very healthy and productive conversation. The community has been very involved, and it's really good to be able to have an idea of the various candidates that are running for the role that is very sensitive to most of us, especially those with children. So thank you all for the commitments, for stepping out there, for wanting to contribute and care for our kids. And we're so happy that you guys took the time this evening to explain your positions today. It has given us a lot of information and insight to make a well-informed vote. So, Ms. Keisha, if anyone has any additional questions for you, how can they follow up with you?
They can follow up with me at speaklife, 2, 1 @gmail.com.
Awesome. And for you, Dr. Hightower, if anyone have any questions or wanting to support you, how can they reach you?
Dr. Hightower for Leon County School Superintendent.
Dr. Hightower for Leon County Schools Superintendent. Is it .com or is that an email?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Hightower Campaign. I'm sorry. .org. HightowerCampaign.org.
HightowerCampaign.org. Thank you so much. And Rocky Hannah, please tell me if there is anyone that has any questions or concerns or wants to support you. How can they reach you?
You can visit my website at rockyhanna.com or email me at rocky@rockyhanna.com. And then finally, if y'all haven't been by Rickards High School, I encourage you to go down there and look at that project. It's absolutely amazing. Something we're very proud of.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming again. And so we're going to conclude our candidate forum. These are the candidates running for our 2020 Leon County Superintendent. August 18 is the final date to vote. Early ballots are already out. If you haven't already voted, we encourage you to look into these.
What is it?
And we will continue to host these forums throughout the week. Tomorrow's categories, we're going to be speaking with the Leon County Commissioners at Large. So please feel free to follow us on our social media sites. We can be found on Facebook at Florida Community Law Center. We're also on Instagram at Florida Community Law Center, or you can subscribe to the YouTube so you'll be notified when the videos and the forums go live tomorrow evening at 7:00 p.m. Also, Florida Community Law Center. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Ms. Rebecca.
We still.
Hello. Hello.